Man, for a second, I thought the 80s cruise was the Woodstock cruise because it was all peace and love, peace and love. But then there was one performance that became super polarizing to the point where a fight broke out in the Facebook group. And one concert going expert proclaimed that if you didn't like the performance, it was your fault. It's an interesting can of worms that has opened up from my experience on the 80s cruise. Is it okay to not like the bands? Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loga. I am your host, Tony, here with I don't know, maybe it's a story time, maybe it's just an interesting look at the psychology of man, but it all revolves around a band. A boy in a band. How about that? Now, the 80s cruise, it's one of those things. It's very cool. I saw 14 concerts in 7 days. And these were big acts from the 1980s. I would say even iconic acts from the 1980s. Shelia E, Christopher Cross, Adam Ant, Men at Work, metal bands like Firehouse and Faster Pussycat, alternative bands like Squeeze and Information Society. It was good on top. And Tiffany, wow, Tiffany, it was good on top of good. We had it all. We had it all, is what I'm telling you. We had pop bands and metal bands and all kinds of stuff. And for the most part, I think everybody enjoyed many of the performances. But there was one performance that became very polarizing because, well, frankly, the performance just wasn't that good. I'll say it. I'll say it now that I'm off the ship and I'm not worried about somebody taking a hit out on me because it got intense, because not that intense. But anyways, let's talk about it was Adam Ant. Okay. I think Adam Ant performed on the third or fourth night of our cruise. And look, I don't know a lot of Adam Ant tunes. I just know the one tune, Goody Two Shoes, which, the fact that I really only know the one song is going to come into play in this conversation. But, he was in the big theater. It was San Juan Day. He wasn't even going to stay on the ship. He just came on to do his two performances and then he got off the ship. And I sat there and I watched what was supposed to be a 90-minute performance. That's what the big theater performances are billed as, 90-minute performance. And he performed for maybe 75 minutes. He left about 15 minutes before before the 90 minutes. And I tell you what, the band that he had was amazing. And his signature sound is developed by having two full drum kits with two full drummers. And then they also add a lot of other percussion with like big tom drums, and the guitarist and the bassist, they stop playing their instruments and they drum also. That signature sound was there and it was fantastic. It sounded good, but the interaction with the crowd from Adam Ant and the vocal, it wasn't great. And look, it wasn't just me. I'm no expert when it comes to music. I've spent some time in the vocal arts, but I've never obviously been a music professional. But I've been a fan of music my whole life, and it just didn't seem good to me. And there were just people leaving the show at 15 minutes in, 30 minutes in, probably 42 minutes in. I don't know. I didn't keep a close watch on it, but I was kind of for me, my strategy is if I actually went and put my butt in a seat, I'm watching the whole show. There were a few shows where I just kind of popped in, stood in the back, took it in a little bit, didn't stay for the whole show, but I did that in a way where I wouldn't be disruptive. But times that I went and actually found a seat, I stayed for the whole show and stayed for the whole Adam Ant show. So I saw this all unfold. And it was weird because, you're on this 80s cruise and you're excited about these people that you know from your past coming and making an appearance. And you know that they're all older than you, right? I'm 53 years old. So in the 80s, all of my, pop icons and rock star icons obviously were older than me. Most of them in their 20s. And so now they're in their 70s or late 60s, some in their 80s, that kind of thing. Now, I think Adam Ant's 70 years old. And so, I left the theater and I ran into some people that I knew on the cruise that had seen the show also. And I said, what do we think about that Adam Ant? Is it okay to say that it wasn't good? Or does everybody just get a pass because it's the 80s cruise and everybody's 70 years old? And it was some interesting conversation, but you know what? I think a lot of people were having that conversation and enough people were having that conversation that one of the people that's a big fan of the 80s and a big part of the 80s cruise got upset. Now, the way the 80s cruise works is they build a really nice community vibe. It's like high school in the most beautiful way, and then maybe in the most negative way because of this little fight that broke out. But, everybody's classified based on how many times they've been to the cruise. So it was my first cruise. So I was a freshman. Freshmen represent. There were sophomores and juniors. The seniors graduated this year. There was a legit graduation ceremony. There was a prom, which was nice, which you were allowed to go to as a freshman. I think when I was in high school, only juniors and seniors could go to the prom. There was a prom, and so it was like that. There was also an alumni show. And let me tell you this, my favorite experience, or one of my favorite experiences on that cruise, was seeing Men at Work, particularly Colin Hay. That was really the only member of the original Men at Work that was there, Colin Hay. And Colin Hay did a special show for the alumni. And look, I met a lot of people that were alumni. And every time I talked about how excited I was to see Men at Work, they told me how good the alumni show with Colin Hay was, to the point where I'm like, I don't want to hear that anymore. I didn't get to see it. Quit rubbing it in my face. No, I don't think they were rubbing it in my face, but that's just, sorry, I didn't mean to squirrel off for a second. But even last night, I had somebody that I've gotten friendly with on the cruise. I was playing the Colin Hay album that I picked up on the cruise, just reveling in how nice that album sounded. And once again, I made a little post about it, and my buddy Chuck in the comments, like, man, he was so good at the alumni show. I'm like, I get it, Chuck. I get he was good. I didn't get to go to the alumni show. Quit rubbing it in. No, okay. So back to the matter at hand. People walking around the cruise ship questioning whether or not legend Adam Ant's show was good or not. And, somebody comes to the defense and really starts scolding people that are complaining about this show in the Facebook group. Let me read you the post. So I'm not including the guy's name. I'm not looking. It's not that kind of thing. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's really just an interesting conversation. So I'm not looking for anybody to be in a fight. So we'll just leave our friend anonymous. But of course, you're on the cruise and in that group, you probably know who it is. Okay, so it says, I've been hearing vastly different reviews on Adam Ant's performances last night, or performance. Some say it was the worst act they've seen. Some say he was great. Here's my take on it, and you can take it with a grain of salt, but I have seen well over 500 plus concerts in my life, and I think I can give a qualitative review. Everybody's opinion is valid, and I want to emphasize. So he's being diplomatic at the beginning, saying, look, I got some pedigree here, been to half a thousand concerts, and I think I know what I'm talking about. Everybody's opinion is valid, but later he's going to tell you why your opinion's wrong. So here we go. Here's my take on Adam Ant last night. Overall, the performance was great. Adam's band was on point, especially his two drummers. Ola, the female drummer, is out of this world. She is awesome. Complete with her pounding with her drumsticks to her foot-tall hairdo. Fantastic. Will Crewston on guitar played masterfully and kept us on our toes with his strumming. Adam's voice was a little shot, but I dare anyone here to belt out all his songs for 2 back-to-back shows in one night and dance his moves on stage. He's very entertaining to watch, and that is part of the allure, to be quirky and give those eye glances to the audience and to hold his pose. That's just what he does. If you've never seen Adam Ant, that was cool. He would just be, singing or something, and then he would just like freeze, like he glitched out. He'd just be like, and then he would like, give a little smile or whatever. It did seem like that. You know how that seemed too long? It did seem like the little glitch was too long. If you only know Goody Two, here's where he tells you why your opinion may be wrong. If you only know Goody Two Shoes and only stand up for that song, then I'm going to boldly say that it's your own fault. If you do not want to dance, that's fine. But if you only know a couple of his songs, then you should listen to more songs of his and all the artists that are playing on the cruise to get a better idea of who they are. That increases the enjoyment of a band if you know more of their songs and can sing and dance along. That's all I'm going to say. Mic drop. So he ends with a mic drop. I think that's pretty fair, actually. I knew a lot of Men at Work's catalog, and apparently I knew a lot of Christopher Cross's catalog. Sometimes you forget how how much somebody's music's in the zeitgeist or whatever that's permeated your brain. So somewhere as a little kid, I took in a lot of Christopher Cross songs. That's what I realized when I listened to his set, because a lot of these bands, you would like Squeeze, for example. I don't know a lot of Squeeze songs, but I knew like 2. And so you just waited through like 90 minutes to like, give me the 2 good songs that I know, or the 2 songs that I know. They were all like Squeeze. All those songs are really good. And now I've spent more time and I got about 4 Squeeze songs that I'm really jamming on these days. But Yeah, so but not Christopher Cross. Like the very first songs were bangers and it just kept going all the way through. I knew much of the Men at Work catalog. All of those songs were best. So I do agree that if you know more songs, it's probably a more enjoyable experience. But if you don't know the songs, you should still be able to enjoy the musicality and the vocality of the performance. And I think that's where everybody got hung up because the vocals were not great in the Adam Ant performance. So that was the beginning. And then, everybody either agreed or disagree. Let me give you some dissension. And fortunately, there's somebody else that also has been to half of 1,000 concerts. Uh, let's see here. This is another poster. I have been to over 500 concerts myself. I did listen to his music before this cruise and had a feeling it probably wasn't going to be for me. However, like all artists on this cruise, we see every one of them. We all have our opinions and are entitled to them. We can only last 30 minutes, no personality, and if you call moving back and forth on the stage dance moves, well, whatever. Definitely wasn't one of the best. He isn't for everyone. I can see if you are a major fan, otherwise no. Again, my opinion, and like everyone else, we should have one. So here's another concert aficionado who does know all of Adam Ant's, or at least listened to all of Adam Ant's catalog, and said it was no good. And then somebody goes even further, agreeing with that post. I agree with you. I was at the early show and it felt phoned into me. And I did know all but one of the songs he performed. I didn't expect the vocals to be the same as 40 years ago. Contrast, Pete Byrne of Naked Eyes on night one had very little voice due to illness, but he was a showman and thoroughly engaged the audience. In 2018, Fee Waybill's voice wasn't great, but he put on one of the most entertaining shows I've seen. All I ask is that the artist give 100%. And in my opinion, I felt he wasn't giving back the energy the crowd was giving him. So interesting conversation. There's some more comments down there that say, look, these people are 70 years old. Is it possible that a 70-year-old can perform well at all? Why are we so upset? The problem is we saw a lot of acts before Adam Ant in the days prior. And guess what? They're all close to Glenn Tilbrook from Squeeze, 67 years old, killed it. Shelia E, 67 years old, killed it. Even after Adam Ant, Christopher Cross in his 70s, killed it. Colin Hay, 74, killed it. So I think it's a straw man argument to say that people in their 70s still can't perform. But wow, yeah, they were so good. I guess the reason I bring it up is because it's fascinating to me. This is really my second experience with a theme cruise, my first experience with a musical themed cruise. And, I kind of went there going, okay, these are going to be bands that we saw 40 years ago in their heyday. Surely they're not going to be as good as they are. But I came away like being fans of bands I didn't even know, like Information Society. I've been digging into their catalog. Squeeze, I've been digging into their catalog. And they brought the goods, man. It was so good. And, maybe it is harsh to come away from a performance saying, I didn't like it or I did like it. I threw it over to the communities. I made a poll in the Facebook community. I made a poll in the La Lita Loca community. I'll show you those results. But first, look, we gotta do a dance break. We gotta do a dance break. Jenny B, my wife, bought me a record player for our anniversary, and I've been picking up vinyl and listening to new music. And man, this morning I've just been cranking out Devo. So how about a punk rock? How about a punk rock dance break? Get up. I don't even know what kind of dance to do for punk rock. Get up. Polls. I asked the same question in both communities. Essentially, is it okay to be a critic? You paid your money. Or should you just show the legends some respect? Over on Facebook, we had 2,214 votes, and 91% of the people said, show the legends some respect. Don't be a critic. And 9% said, be a critic. It was a little different on YouTube. We had 5,100 votes. A little more parity there. 58% said, show some respect to the legends. And 42% said, be a critic. You paid your money. But what say you? A good time to leave a comment. If you go on an 80s cruise, should you just shut up and enjoy it? Is it your fault that you didn't know all of the music, or is it okay to say, man, we paid, and the person that got paid didn't do good? Yeah, I don't know. Leave a comment below. Thanks so much for checking out today's episode. Subscribe for more. It's Tony for La Lido Loca. Until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye.